Hey guys, I'm here in beautiful Olympic National Park on the Hoh River Trail, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite hikes, definitely bucket list worthy in my book, which is the Hoh River Trail all the way up to Glacier Meadows and the Blue Glacier. First half of the hike is pretty flat through a temperate rainforest along the Hoh River right here, and then the second half we're going to go up into the mountains and get up to the ends and go see the Blue Glacier, which supplies this river, but it's also allegedly the most rained on, or the most it's a glacier in the lower 48 that gets the most precipitation. So really cool alpine environment up there, even though the elevation isn't that high. Now it's about 34 miles out and back. If you want to do it, most people camp. They take, I don't know, 3 to 4 days to camp. Beautiful camp spots along the way. I have a guide on my website, HikingGuy.com, where I talk about all of the itinerary options, camping, and tips on logistics and planning before you get here. So make sure you check that out. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. Instead, what I'm going to do in 1 second is show you what it's like to hike on the trail. I'll show you what the trail looks like, where to make the turns, and all of that fun stuff, so you can come out here and kind of get an idea of what it's going to be like. Now, as you're watching this video, if you could do me a big favor and click the little thumbs up, it's an easy way to say thank you, and it also helps other people find this video, so you're passing it on to other hikers who might want to see something similar to what you're watching right now. Very similar, in fact, exact. But anyway, thank you in advance for that, and let's hit the trail. Bye. All right, so the hike starts right at the Hoh Visitor Center. And there's a couple of smaller little loop trails around here for casual visitors. We're just going to follow the signs until we get to the Hoh River Trail. We're going to pass the trail boards, give them a look, make sure there's no notices. You should also check the alerts page on the website, and I have a link to that in the article as well. Here we're going to bear to the right, follow the signs to the Hoh River Trail. We're going to cross this little bridge. This will be the first of many creek crossings along the way. But it's nice to look down, crystal clear water, but don't linger too long. There's a lot of people here, and you will have plenty of these all to yourself as you continue down the trail a little bit later. Here's your second junction. We're going to bear to the left, and that's the last of the junctions around these small interpretive trails. Here you can see Hoh River Trail sign. We're in the right place, and we're just going to hike up here for a minute or two, and then you're going to go past a larger Hoh River Trail sign that has distances to the landmarks listed. Use these distances as a rough ballpark, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little bit less, but just a heads up. And once you go past here, you're going to leave a lot of the people behind, and you will be in the rainforest, and right away it's spectacular. You have trees, some of which are over 1,000 years old, over 200 feet high. It is really otherworldly here, and I talk a little bit about the rainforest and the creatures in here on the hike guide on HikingGuy.com, so make sure you check that out before you come. You can see what happens when one of these huge trees falls across the trail. They have to saw through it here, and you can kind of get an idea of how big these trees are when you go through these crossings. Now off to the right, there's a trail down to the river. There's a few of these little trails down to the river in the beginning. Some people just come up here and hike down to the river, which is a neat little hike in itself. There's also some splits like this. In general, you're going to want to favor the split to the left, which will be the trail. The ones to the right usually get on the river. Sometimes they dead end, and sometimes they don't. But otherwise, keep going. Pretty soon you're going to see the Hoh River off to your right. And at points, the trail is close to the river, and other points it goes inland a little bit. But you'll get tons of opportunities to view it. You'll also notice the trail gets a little bit more primitive as you continue. It gets a little more rocky, a little more overgrown, a little more muddy. Luckily, it's nice out on this day, but the trail does get really, really muddy when it rains, which is a lot. And again, I talk about that on the guide on the website too, so make sure you check that out. Here you can see the Hoh River, little access points. The nice thing about this hike is you don't have to carry too much water. There's always an opportunity to refill, but you do need to filter the water here because it can contain little nasty things that will make your stomach upset. Now on paper, this kind of looks like a flat trail. It is gently uphill, but in practice, when you're out there, it's rolling. It's a little bit up and down, but nothing too major. Here we're crossing Mineral Creek, and the falls are up to the left there. You can get a nice little view of them. And again, there's going to be a ton of these creek crossings along the way. Some of them you have to walk through the creek, so trail runners that vent and dry easy are a good choice. Some of them have crossings have little rocks or boards like this to walk across. Overall, I'd say plan on getting wet. Don't try to keep your feet dry. It is probably futile. All right, this is the Mount Tom Creek campsite area, the first one, just under 3 miles in. And if you're going to camp, you can go down there. But otherwise, we're going to continue straight here and head across this bridge. Now, in the guide on Hiking Guy, I'll talk about the campsites as well. Some of them you're actually encouraged to camp out on the gravel banks by the river, which is really cool. But otherwise, we're going to continue here, cross another creek. Nice little bridge to do it on. And the crossings get a little hairier as we get up closer to Blue Glacier, and I'll show you that in a second as you watch this. More giant trees, and you can see also how it's a little more overgrown here as we continue. I've never had a problem with ticks here. I'm sure there's some around. Or insects, but having insect repellent will help. All right, here's the turnoff for 5 Mile Island, the campsite down there. Otherwise, we're going to go straight through. And pretty soon you're going to see another turnoff for the Happy 4 campsites. And all of these, or most of these campsites, also have a shelter. All of the sites and shelters are first come, first serve. It's not numbered or anything. And some of the shelters are only to be used for emergencies, and there'll be a little notice on there if that's the case. But otherwise, we're going to continue to go down. Here's a dry crossing with a huge fallen tree across it. Again, you can see there's little ups and downs, no big climbs in the beginning. You'll be able to see some of the higher peaks along the edge, Bogachil, and some of the higher peaks up towards Mt Olympus as we go. Now this is the first really big crossing. The Hoh River is a braided river, which basically means that there's little branches of it that come, off of the main channel. Here we're going to cross it across this little log, or big log here. You can see it's well worn. It's pretty easy. Once we get across, we're going to follow the trail. You're going to see the braid is off to your left. Now this part can get a little bit tricky. When you come to this junction, we're going to make the left here. If the river or the braid is really low, you can go straight and just walk through it. But for most of the time, you're going to want to make a left. And you'll see there's a little beach. We're going to go up that beach and over the log. But before we do, let me just show you the log that we'll be crossing, or a series of logs. This can be confusing for folks. You can see right there's a bunch of them, but the easy way to do it is to go back down to the beach here and then go all the way across and then go up along the riverbank from there. It looks a little bit worse than it is, but if you come up from the beach, it's much easier than going up from the section where I just showed you. And once you get across, you're going to go up along the beach and you'll see the trail coming in from the right. Now, if the river's low, you can just walk right across that, but otherwise the logs are going to be your best bet. And we're going to continue up a little bit here, and you can see it's a little more overgrown, more lush as we go, more bridges. You'll see signs for horses. People can take livestock on this hike. I've never seen it, but you can. And here's the sign for the beginning of the Olympus Guard campground or campsite, and here's the ranger station. And some of the campsites off to the right. Now, a lot of these campsites also have primitive toilets. I'll list those out on the website so you can use that. It's much easier than digging a hole. But go ahead and check out the board, make sure there's no notices, and then continue on. And this is the only real intersection here. We're going to make the right. Off to the left is the Hoh Lake Trail, which is a steep uphill. But we're going to go right to stay on the Hoh River Trail. Easy to probably get those confused. And there's some funky stream crossings here, can get confusing. always just sort of look across and look for where the trail is continuing on the other side, and that's going to be your best clue as to where to cross. Here at 10.5 miles in is the Lewis Meadow campsite, another neat campsite. We're going to continue in the last couple miles of flat that we have. You can see there's nice views of the Hoh River down here as we continue. And pretty soon we're going to transition to the uphill portion of the program. And this is the 12.4 mile marker. There's a non-reserve campsite down there. But we're going to turn off to the left and start the climb. Now, mercifully, it is easier in the beginning. You can kind of ease into it as you go up, and it does get steeper towards the end. And it's not a high altitude climb, but you could see here that it is steep, and if you're backpacking up to Glacier Meadows, it's going to be tough because you're going to have a heavy backpack. Now this is a really cool spot. This is the High Hoh Bridge, which is about 100 feet over the Hoh River Gorge below. Really cool spot, beautiful views of the roaring river. On that side, on the other side, you can see the creek join in with the Hoh. Really beautiful spot, and a lot of people just do a long day hike to that bridge because it's so cool. Right after that, there's a couple of non-reserve campsites where you can stay. First come, first serve. Generally, in this post-COVID area, they only want you to stay there if it's an emergency, if you're hiking and you need to bail out somewhere before your campgrounds. But I'll put a link to the campgrounds webpage on the park site so you can check it out, check all the latest rules and regulations. But after that, we're going to start going up, and you can see as you go up, you'll be able to see a few hundred feet down, and it's steep and it's tough. Just pace yourself as you go up here. It's about 5 or 6 miles of climbing, and pretty soon you're going to hear a roaring waterfall. That's Martin Creek down there, and we're going to go over that in a second. There's also a campground on Martin Creek. This can be a tough one to figure out. There's a lot of different crossings here, but if you go down and you look up, you'll see the crossing going across. You can see the trail continuing on the other side. And then right past that is the Martin Creek campground, where you can see some campsites cleared out among the trees off to the left over there. And then shortly after that, we're going to reach the Elk Lake campground and shelter. You can see there's a sign for it. The trail continues straight up through there, but down there is the shelter, and if you go down a little path, a few minutes, you'll reach the lake. But otherwise, we're going to continue hiking uphill, and this is probably my favorite part of the hike, because you can start to see the high peaks in the distance. Bogachiel back to your right, Panic Peak in the distance, and you'll be able to see glimpses of Mt Olympus as you hike up here as well. And there's Elk Lake down there. You'll be able to see it through the trees as you hike up here. You can kind of get an idea of how steep this is as we hike up. Here's some snow. Now, it's important to time this hike right. Late summer is usually the best time when all the snow is gone. And I have some tips on picking the right time on the guide on the website as well. Here you can see one of the creek crossing is snow and ice. And when this is really bad, you're going to want micro spikes, and I'll talk about gear on the webpage. But otherwise, just keep on going up here. There we can see some nice views into the high peaks. You can get some nice views of Glacier Creek and a little hidden hanging valley off to the right. It's really, really beautiful as you hike up here. Here's another creek crossing. This one can get kind of wet. You can kind of see it winding around there in the distance. Just take your time. They're a little more steep, a little more hairy as you get up on the climb. Now here we are at the scary section. This is the ladder climb down the Jamrod Gully, the washout section. I have a whole section of tips on how to do this, but in general there's a line. Down here, you can hold on to the line and walk up and down the ladder. And then once you get to the bottom, you go up to the left, climb up a little bit, and then rejoin the trail. You can see there's a ladder from the other side. You go down there, and and climb up along here and then rejoin the trail a little bit up. And again, I have a bunch of tips on handling that later. And just past that is Glacier Meadows. And there's a couple of shelters here, also a primitive toilet and a ranger station. When you get to this little intersection, we're going to make the left and we're going to keep on hiking up for the last little bit up to the viewpoint for Blue Glacier. We're going to keep going up and we're going to pass the ranger station, which is seasonal. Sometimes a little yurt set up there. We're going to keep on heading uphill here. Eventually we're going to go up. We're going to come out of the trees into a section of moraine. And then we're going to arrive at the Blue Glacier. And this is the end point of the hike. And you'll be in the shadow of Mt Olympus and all the high peaks. And you can just enjoy this and then head back the way you came. So that's it. That's the hike. I love this hike. It's a beautiful area. Highly recommend this hike if you have not done it already. Now again, to HikingGuy.com, where I'll talk about itineraries and planning all of that. And if you stick around for a minute, I will show you what the hike looks like on a 3D map so you can kind of get a lay of the land. All right, guys, I'll see you. All right, so here we are on the map. You can see here's the beginning part, all flat, and then we climb up into the mountains. And if I swing it around, you can see it a little bit better. Here's the visitor center, and you can see this is the Hoh River going along on the side. Now the beginning is pretty uniform in terms of what the hike is like. You're going to be close to the river, then you're going to go away from the river like you can see here. You can see here are the campsite turnoffs. Now generally the campsites are a little bit off of the main trail, and for some of them you have the opportunity to camp on the gravel bars of the river. I'll talk about that on the guide, or in the guide on the website. But here you can see we continue up the river valley over here. This is that tricky bridge crossing where we go across, not bridge, but a log crossing right here, all the way up to the Olympus Ranger Station, and then the Hoh Lake Trail intersection. You can see up here, here's Hoh Lake. If we were to go up that trail, we're not going to do that. There's Lewis. This is the last of the big campgrounds as we go up. And then from down here, we're going to start climbing. Tilt this up here. Here you can see there's the 12.4, and now we start going up. It's kind of gradual in the beginning, and then it gets steeper as we go up here, and we leave the Hoh River behind. We swing this around so you can see how it climbs up here. Here we climb. There's Martin Creek coming down here. Here's Elk Lake Shelter. Continue to climb up over here. Here's the Jamrod Gully washout. This is Jamrod Creek, and this is the gully right here. Here's the washout. You can see we go down the ladder, then we go up along the gully, and then we cut back onto the trail. And then we get up to Glacier Meadows right here, and then continue on up. We come up, we go through these rocky sections past the tree line. Then eventually we come up onto this ridge all the way down to the viewpoint of the glacier. There's the glacier, and then if we look up, we can see Mt Olympus up in the distance off to the right. Right up here, there's the 3 peaks. So that's the hike. Really fun one. And again, check out the guide on Hiking Guy. There will be a lot more information in there for you to plan this out and have fun on the trip. All right, guys, I will see you later.